Hello, my name is Eric Putkonen. Thank you for joining me. Today I'm going to be talking about the jnani and enjoyment. There is an ongoing myth or misconception about enlightenment, something that I call an enlightenment myth, that after enlightenment, the jnani cannot enjoy what's in the world. For some reason, you need to deny or remove any form of enjoyment, or some people believe that after enlightenment, the jnani simply can't enjoy whatever is going on. And that simply isn't true. For example, it is quite possible for a jnani to enjoy a really good meal, be it something that's served to him, going to a restaurant, whatever. It doesn't matter. Wherever the source of the good meal is, it can be enjoyed. What does not happen is a craving, an attachment to have this continue, that you must have it again, that to have some kind of attachment to having only good meals. Because not all meals may be absolutely pleasurable. Rather, the jnani accepts what is presented or whatever comes of its own or whatever's available in the world. And so if the jnani has some funds and is thinking, well, tonight I think I'm going to have something good to eat, might go to a restaurant. That's totally possible for one who has had enlightenment happen. You're not restricted to tasteless gruel or things that taste bad. There's this idea that after enlightenment we must push away and get rid of anything that's pleasurable. And that really is, I think, missing the point. In this way, it's almost like trying to purify or cleanse the world of not only everything that's bad, but anything pleasurable. And so it's like, well, why should we have all this life on this planet? Let's scrub it away until it's this, static, lifeless rock. And that's what we'll be. And it's not quite, I think, the point. Realizing that there is no me, there is no other, that there is no separation, does not mean you cannot still enjoy the illusion, the dream of the world. Likewise, the jnani can still listen to music and enjoy music. I love going to kirtans. It is, if I can't get to a kirtan, I'm not discontent. I'm not unhappy. I'm not craving and thirsting for a kirtan. It's not like it must happen. But if there's a kirtan in the area and I'm available, I might go just for the joy of it. There's nothing wrong with this. And so this idea, this perpetuated idea that the juice, the life of the world must be stripped away to basic. We must always eat the basic of foods and have no entertainments, and we must have no pleasures, and this is the way of the jnani, of someone who's enlightened. That's BS. It is unfortunate, I guess, that so many of the seekers and teachers have been renunciants, or better yet, ascetics. I mean, I have renounced the world in the sense that I'm not possessing anything. I'm not attached to anything. But I still live in the world. Still have a day job. Still have a wife, daughter. Still travel. And I enjoy life. But the ascetic has this idea of disciplining the body, breaking it down, making it, giving itself pain. The ascetic would starve themselves, only live on a spoonful of rice a day, that kind of thing. That you shouldn't have any enjoyments, any kinds of pleasure should be gotten rid of. And unfortunately, this asceticism has leaked into this idea of what a jnani or what enlightenment does. But asceticism has nothing to do with enlightenment. Asceticism has nothing to do with a jnani. An ascetic isn't necessarily a jnani, and a jnani is not necessarily an ascetic. And so asceticism, getting down to basic, getting rid of all pleasures, is not really necessary. And so if there's this fear that, well, after enlightenment, am I going to lose interest in all my hobbies? A question I've heard. Not necessarily. Your hobbies may change. They may not change. I know in my own experience, my hobbies by and large did not change. But over time, as understanding and interests change, as they always do, I've given up some hobbies and I've taken on several others. If anything, I find that enlightenment makes it much easier to try new things. Since I was very young, I was always under the impression that I had no sense of rhythm. I mean, even in music class, they would say clap along, and I could not clap on beat. I had no sense of rhythm. Rhythm and beats were a thing that were foreign to me. And so all through much of my life, I had the idea that, instruments and anything of that sort is beyond me. Music is beyond me. I can listen to it, but I can't make it. And it was after enlightenment happened that I was at a spiritual retreat, healer's retreat, with me and my wife and the woman who owned the resort. That she hosted a drum jam, and I was just there enjoying drum jams, as I sometimes do. And she walked up with a djembe, or actually she walked up with basically a stick for the big. It was like an Indian drum where you can probably get 8-9 people around it if we squeeze tight. But she handed me a stick and goes, "Go for it." And so I went, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And so I started messing with it, and I was not on beat at first. So I played rather lightly, but eventually I got in sync with everybody, and I could hold the basic beat, because on that kind of drum, it's one basic beat. You really don't change beats much. But it was just a steady beat. And then sometime later, on another retreat, instead of handing me a stick, she walked up with a djembe and goes, "Here, play it." And it was like, "Sure, I guess I will." And so I played it. And since then, I've bought a djembe and studied up on it. Also got a darbuka, a cajon. So now I've got like 3 drums that I play. I go to drum circles and kirtans, and I've played at some kirtans and other places. And I really enjoy playing the drums. Something I would have never gotten into prior to enlightenment, probably. There would have been always this fear, this self-consciousness. But this fear and self-consciousness actually, once removed, makes it much easier to try new things. Because you don't mind making a fool of yourself, so to speak. And so I've picked up the hobbies of drumming, and while I also started studying Spanish again, and I've picked up several new hobbies and interests post-enlightenment. So it's not like enlightenment ended having interests and hobbies. If anything, it kind of enriched them and gave a gateway to picking up some new ones. And so I know hobbies, music, food, even even sex, because I know that's another pleasure. And again, the ascetics would say we need to do away with this. We must do away with all carnal desire. But then again, there's also the tantrics. The tantrics, tantric yoga is a branch where they would use pretty much whatever happened in life as a form of spiritual practice. And so in tantric practices, you could even use intercourse as a sexual practice. And so using that, in that way, there is no problem for a householder yogi such as myself, that has a house, family, wife, to still have intimate relations with my wife. It's not like I have to do away with that. It is rather strange that I encounter this so much. I find it so very strange that there's this belief that we must do away with anything pleasurable, anything enjoyable, and get it down to basic. Very dull, very bland. You can only have bland food and very little of it, just enough to keep the body going. And you don't want to do anything pleasant. That doesn't make any sense. In a way, that is a subtle denying of the world. It's a reverse attachment. It is still an attachment in that you're attached to denying and getting rid of everything. And so what I'm suggesting is more of a allowing what is to be. So, if the mood happens, me and my wife cuddle or whatever, and it's great. If it doesn't happen, I'm not discontent and unhappy. There isn't this craving, thirsting for it. It must happen. I'm not particularly attached to it. Likewise, food, music, playing music, games, hobbies, all this can still be done after enlightenment. The jnani is free to do all this. The jnani is not restricted to being an ascetic and giving up and pushing away anything that might be pleasant. Because it is possible to enjoy without trying to possess, thirst, grab, attach. It is possible to enjoy while it is and let it go as it will. Because everything is temporary. Everything comes and goes. And so what enjoyment is will end. And when it ends, you let it go. You're not craving it going, how can I get a repeat of that? How can I get that again? There's no such thing as a repeat. Every experience is unique. It is impossible to repeat a past thing. Because even you are not the same as you were. And so the way it is experienced would be different. And so if you're trying to replicate what you had, that's a fool's errand. It'll never happen. It'll always be slightly different. And if you're looking for an exact replica, it'll leave you disappointed. But the jnani isn't trying to replicate anything. It's more of a focus of what's going on now. I'm having a good meal today, and then tomorrow, depending what's going on, I might have a good meal again. Then at some point, due to circumstances or whatever's going on, I might have, or maybe I might cook and it turns out to be a disaster and it's a crappy meal. Still, okay. Or maybe you're visiting somebody's house and it's stuff that isn't particularly to the liking of the body. So what? Pick it out, not eat it. All these are viable options. It's not like you must force yourself to eat stuff you don't like to prove that you're unaffected, because that's ridiculous. Again, that's somewhat related to the idea that the jnani can't feel pain and should be able to withstand anything that goes on in the world, which is ridiculous as well. Just as bad as trying to push away all enjoyments is to seek and grab onto displeasure and pain and go through it as a way to prove that you're beyond it, which is ridiculous. So if there's some kind of food that's presented and you don't particularly like it, you don't have to eat it. The jnani doesn't go, well, I'll eat whatever's served. No, there's other options. The number of options in the world are rather staggeringly large. And we like coming up with these rules for the jnanis and those who are enlightened and say, well, you should be able to do this. You've already lost it as soon as you say, they should be able to do this. There are no shoulds. If a jnani just doesn't like carrots and in the meal there's carrots and he kind of knocks them out of the way and eats everything but the carrots, you can't say, oh, that's not a jnani because he isn't able to eat everything without comment. It doesn't really matter. Now, if he was forced to eat carrots, he would just eat the carrots. I know Eckhart Tolle actually had a good story once when he was talking about allowing what is. And somebody goes, because this is a fine point, but they go, well, how do you, this allowing and doing things contrary, how does that exactly work? And he goes, and Eckhart once said, well, let's say I was in a discotheque. He goes, I don't like those. And so if I was in a discotheque, I would leave. Free to do that. But if I was chained and locked up in a discotheque where I could not escape and I had to be there, I'd be also just as fine. I'd be okay and allow and be present in the discotheque. And this is the fine point. If there's no way to get out of it, it is accepted. But if you can get out of it, get out of it. And so that's what I mean when, if there's a jnani that doesn't like carrots, and the meal has carrots, he could pick out the carrots and eat the rest. He can avoid the carrots. There's nothing wrong with this. It's strange to say, a jnani would never be a picky eater. Why? Everybody has its preferences. Everybody likes certain flavors. Part of it's out of, being however you're raised, or all these other variables, but the body has preferences. And it's not that enlightenment gets rid of all preferences. It's that you're not particularly attached or tied down to your preferences. Again, you might pick out the carrots, but then again, if the carrots have dissolved into, let's say, a soup or something where you can't pick it out, you're just as okay eating them. It doesn't really matter that much. But if you can get out of the situation, out of the discotheque, then do it. If you can't, you're just as happy in it. Likewise, if a pleasure comes, it is okay to enjoy whatever's going on. Good food, music, hobbies, interests, that's fine. So don't try to say that a jnani should get rid of all pleasures and embrace all displeasures, or be able to put up with anything that's given, and not try to get out of anything that is coming, so to speak. So, it's like, because if you take it to a slightly more of an extreme, you can see how ridiculous it is. It's like, well, if you've decided to cross the road, and as you're crossing the road, you notice that a car is speeding towards you. Well, a jnani wouldn't bother trying to get out of the way because he doesn't particularly care. That's dumb. Even the jnani knows that, yes, the body, this is in the dream of life. It doesn't matter when I go, but it's also like when you're playing a game. It doesn't matter when the character you're playing dies, but the whole point and fun of playing the game is seeing how far the character can go. So you're going to try not to die. Not because you have to live and you have to keep going, but because it's just fun to keep going for a while. And so the jnani would, of course, stop, retreat, move faster, whatever, but in some way it would get out of the way of the car. He would not just trudge along going, it just doesn't matter. So don't try to have this idea that, like I said, I guess in summary, the jnani gets rid of all pleasure, all hobbies, interests, everything, can't have anything pleasurable, doesn't enjoy, or that the jnani is incapable of enjoyment. Though that's wrong. Also, that's also wrong, is that the jnani embraces all displeasure and everything else as a way to prove that he's beyond all things. It's like, or that he's an ascetic and must always, do the absolute minimum. And so a spoonful of rice a day is enough to survive. That's what he should be doing. That's ridiculous. It is quite possible to enjoy the world and many things of the world as a jnani, but there isn't that attachment, that clinging, that needing for it to repeat, to continue, or otherwise remain in order to be happy. The jnani is just as happy when it parts, when it inevitably parts. It will go away. The jnani knows this. doesn't try to hold on to it. Enjoyed while it lasts, and that's it. So, anyways, that's probably all I want to talk about today regarding enjoyment and the jnani. So if you have any questions, please post below. If you think somebody might enjoy the video, please forward. But until next time, thank you much.